Yep, hit me with the jump scare with my cool ass shirt that I got from gamersubs.gg, of course. But enough about my shirt. I wish to talk about something that is related to music, and you might be surprised to hear me talk about, and that's Bruno Mars' newest album, The Romantic. Yeah, new Bruno Mars album finally comes out right here, right now. I've been listening to this since its actual debut yesterday as I'm recording this video. And look, Bruno Mars is an artist that I've come to know and actually grew up with my entire life ever since his debut album back in 2010 with Doo-Wops and Hooligans. And given that The Romantic by Bruno Mars has been a long, long time coming since his last solo album, which was his 2016 album 24K Magic, it marks 10 exact years since that project came out. And 24K Magic for me was, in my humble opinion, up until that point, Bruno Mars's peak, his magnum opus. This is arguably his best album ever, and it's no surprise given like how high it did during the year when it came out. It also became synonymous for winning a Grammy for album of the year, if I'm not mistaken, outclassing other albums at the time. So Bruno Mars was an artist that I always like looked up to because again, you for a little fun fact for anyone who hasn't known, Bruno Mars was someone that actually grew up here in the state of Hawaii. And I've been keeping up with his music, keeping up with every album since then. And of course, 5 years later, after the release of 12K Magic, we get An Evening with Silk Sonic, which was a collab project between him and Anderson .Paak. And this album was also really good, also really amazing. The only criticism I have about this project in general was that I wish it was much, much longer. Like nuts to butts, every track on this album was just freaking amazing. I just wish it was longer at the end of the day. So, with The Romantic by Bruno Mars, this was going to be one of the biggest, most highly anticipated albums of the year. And after listening to this album for like a good 4 times in a row, because like I said, this is not a lengthy album, it's 31 minutes in length, there's only 9 tracks off of here. I think that this might be Bruno's most riskiest uptaking to a project that he's released ever. Because when you look at his last few projects where clearly a lot of his albums and even the Silk Sonic collab was paying homage to like a decade in pop music. In the case of the Romantic here, I feel like he's now trying to lean towards his influences on his sleeve and really showcase like, okay, now we're gonna give you like what you really want, a nuts to butts Bruno Mars album. And I think the Romantic successfully hits that really, really well. Now, to put it in perspective, I think because this is 9 songs in length, I'm only going to just narrow it down to, in my view, the top 3 songs off of this project. So I think the best 3 songs off of this album as of right now would be the debut track or the number one track with Risk It All, which is a really great intro and really showcases like what you're getting yourself into. And with a again amazing performance of Bruno Mars and a really good production backing to back up this album's theme, it sets the stage of what's to come. Second track off here would be On My Soul, which to me, this feels like a huge, huge homage to off the wall era Michael Jackson. And again, you listen to the song, even though it's super brief and probably one of the shorter songs, like you're gonna feel like you just went back in time to the off the wall era of Michael Jackson, and it goes off super, super well in a way. And finally, I think for number 3 would be Dance With Me, the closing track off this album. It's a really nice, really heartfelt performance that really, in my view, ties up the Romantic album in its own respective way. Now, if we're gonna go with what is the weakest song off here, because at the end of the day, there not every album's gonna be perfect. There's going to be like one or two stinkers at the end of the day. I think the weakest song off here, if I had to just narrow it down to one, would probably be the eighth track, "Nothing Left." The reason for that choosing is simply this: I really think that "Nothing Left" could have been a lot more passionate in a way, and it felt like at that point we kind of were losing that momentum, especially when you consider that the previous track, Something Serious, was like a huge, huge influence of paying homage to the artist Santana, respectfully. With Nothing Left, it just felt like we heard this song like 2, 3 tracks ago, if that makes sense. But again, that's my opinion at the end of the day with these songs, what I think is the best, what I think is the weakest. But now we get into what I think is the biggest criticism about this album, and probably with every Bruno Mars album. I simply wish that this romantic album was simply longer. Like, look, when I the fact that I'm reviewing this album right here right now should speak volumes. This is not a lengthy album. It's really really short. To me, like if this was given like 10, maybe 20 more minutes of runtime, this would have been much more like easy to digest and like actually break down left and right, right? But I don't know, man. Like you have to consider that this was 10 years in the making when you consider his last official solo project, which was 24K Magic, and this one, like I was expecting, like given that this was a 10-year gap, we would get more songs. We would break out the 30-minute threshold because that's what Bruno Mars has been known for at this point. Is giving us a 30-minute album and that's it. Like I really wish we got more. Again, while the performance of this album is really great, I love the production of this project. I once again just think that there were some themes and topics that could have been delved much, much, much deeper, give or take. And again, the main criticism would be towards like the shorter tracks. Again, even though I like the song All My Soul and Something Serious to its respects, I wish the songs were extended a little bit longer to enhance the themes of said songs because it felt really short and kind of long, a little bit like underwhelming at times, right? So once again, while Bruno Mars really did deliver a nice quality album, it I think it did came at the cost of like, okay, this feels really, really condensed that I really just wanted more at the end of the day. And I think that's what I'm gonna leave it at right here, right now. Again, the romantic I think is definitely worth the listen, but for me, at the end of the day, this is just an album that I really was hoping would be a much longer and maybe would be like another like victory lap to showcase like how much Bruno Mars has improved, maybe has evolved during that 10-year, 5-year gap during those releases respectfully, right? So yeah, just wanted to simply talk about The Romantic by Bruno Mars. I think it's a good album. I think that anyone who's a huge Bruno Mars fan is going to get a lot of bang for their buck at the end of the day. And again, maybe there's going to be people out there that will like the shorter length album at the end of the day, and that's fine. It's just that for me, I wish this was a lot longer of an experience because I know Bruno Mars. Again, I know he's capable of pulling out a longer album, but again, we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe he might drop like a deluxe edition of this album in the future. Who knows, right? But yeah, just wanted to simply talk about this a little bit because Bruno Mars is a pretty big artist here in Hawaii, and I have to talk about him one way or another. And yeah, that's it. See you on the next one. Later.